West, A312. Continue on A312 for half a mile. In a quarter of a mile, keep left to continue on Fags Road. Keep left to continue on Fags Road. In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Great Southwest Road, A30. Continue on A312 for 1 mile. In 200 yards, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway, A312. Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway. Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile. Quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway Interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25.
Then all sorts of things were done to make it easy for us. There were pop-up clinics and all the rest of it. Why is it suddenly young people are the ones who've got to be coerced? You know, we've actually got a very good take-up rate compared to other countries. 35% of young people in France, 65% in the United Kingdom. I think just treat young people and treat everybody else with a bit more respect than this, and they will respond.
Just a moment ago, before you came on, Alistair, I spoke to a professor. He's the professor in public health at University of Bedfordshire. He says he would encourage every organisation which operates a business such as a theatre in enclosed spaces, nightclubs, particularly areas where there's not much ventilation, to introduce COVID vaccine passport systems on the door. Would the Lib Dems oppose
Exit the
that?
roundabout onto the slip road.
It's up to individual businesses what they
In a
do.
quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
Against that. The danger is because we know that even when you're double vaccinated, you can still be carried, you can still be infectious. That you create this sort of false sense of security. Guards go down, social distancing rules, masking rules, and all that sort of thing. And we were on the subject back in December, and some serious academic studies have shown that the more you coerce, the higher the rate of vaccine skepticism you get. And especially true when you do it in the way that the government is trying to avoid, which is in the domestic context, not just for foreign travel. I'm saying it's another of these quick fixes that Boris Johnson...
Continue on M4 for 3 miles.
And in fact, at the end of the day, we know they're not critical of any of those things.
All right, that's Alistair Carmichael. He's the Lib Dem Home Affairs spokesman in the MP4 But let's get to the correspondence. What you make of it? The app now has wording which says you may need to use this, may need to show this in certain businesses. I can't see that it's a big problem really. If you've got of course, if you've got a smartphone, it's probably don't, because you won't have the app on your phone. But as a principle, what's wrong when companies want to require people to be double vaccinated when they let them in theatres, cinemas, nightclubs? It's not the government making them do it, it's their choice. What's wrong with that? 0345 60973. Jerry's calling from Whitley Bay in the gorgeous area of the Tiny Weir. Fine part of the world, Jerry, I'm told. And I hope to be seeing it next month for the first time. How's that? All right then, that'd be good. What do you think, Jerry? What do you think about this, Jerry?
Quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Their choice, and they're enabling that to happen via the app. That seems to be practical and common sense.
Keep right to stay on M4.
Certain concert halls where probably the people in the stores are
continue on M4 for 2 miles.
Next to them, and the person on the other side of them has been double vaxxed. They're going to be more relaxed, aren't they? Yeah, all right, Jerry, great call. Thank you. That's Jerry in Whitney Bay. Who agrees with that? Who disagrees? 2 4 345 60609. The Lib Dems accusing the government of deceit. I think it's too strong a word. I don't think there's anything deceitful about it at all. It's just saying if you want to, that if companies want to operate the passport system So what's wrong with that? Do call 0345 6060 93. Coming up, we're also going to be talking about should pregnant women get the COVID jab. This comes as amid rising hospital admissions, but the time is now 6:31. Headlines with Tim Humphrey.
New data from the Office for National Statistics shows that infection rates have continued to rise across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, but dropped in Scotland. However, today's UK figure for new infections is down nearly 1,500 on yesterday. A steward at Wembley has admitted attempting to help fans without tickets get into the Euro 2020 final. 18-year-old Yusuf Amin from Newark in East London stole official lanyards and wristbands and offered to sell them on Facebook. England cricketer Ben Stokes is taking a break from sport to focus on his mental health. Officials say he showed tremendous courage and they fully support his decision. The weather storm ever clearing east tonight, leaving central parts dry and clear. There will be showers in the east and west, a low of 11.
This is LBC.
This summer at TalkTalk, we've got deals that make sense. Our new Fibre Plus packages offer everything you get with our standard unlimited fibre broadband plans, plus award-winning online security, plus guaranteed fixed prices from just £26 a month for 18 months, plus the latest Amazon Echo Dot with Alexa, plus an Amazon Smart Plug. When you add it all up, it just makes sense. Fibre Plus packages for everyone. Search TalkTalk Fibre now. On Friday, September, £4.95 per packet. T's and C's at talktalk.co.uk.
More and more people are using My Smart Desk to make smart working even more flexible. It'll raise and lower into any sitting or standing position at the touch of a button. And now comes with built-in USB-C and wireless smartphone charge points.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
£4 off for just £349. The future is flexible at mysmartdesk.co.uk. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. You know what makes me smile? Being a right smarty pants. My team always wins first prize in the pub quiz. My missus has me put a PhD in always being.
Keep right to stay on M4.
That's why I get new glasses with Specsavers. I'm not drawn hours for £69. I dress them just look smart and make me feel smart too. That's something to smile about. Glasses from £69. Find out more at specsavers.co.uk. Conditions and experience apply.
Free purchase of your investment gold, silver, and other precious metals. VAT-free when you store with us. Baird & Co. For the refining of your scrap gold as one of the UK's largest gold and silver refineries. Baird & Co. A family-owned business and members of the London Bullion Market Association. Call now on 020 7474 1000 or find out more on our new website, bairdmint.com.
Hey Harry. Hello mate. Should I back the underdog or risk a few extra quid on the favourite?
Listen, everyone knows that I like a bet, but if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's this. No matter what the amount, no matter whether you're backing a player or buying a racehorse, your best bet is never to spend more than you can afford. That's why BetVic does not affordability measures, especially designed to help you avoid ever spending beyond your means.
Listen to Harry, please gamble responsibly. 18 plus, be gamble aware.
We've come a long way in the fight against COVID-19. Many more of our favourite places are fully open for business again. Shops, stadiums, cafes, cinemas and nightclubs. And if we work together, we can keep it that way. But the virus is still with us, so we should be careful protecting our friends and family. So if you have mild symptoms, don't guess. Take a test and stay at home if you think you could have the virus, even if you've been vaccinated. Let's keep life moving. Find out more at nhs.uk/get-tested.
Andrew Pierce on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We will carry on talking about COVID vaccine passports. Martin sends an interesting text. He says, as a double jab person, I do not support vaccine passports. It's another step towards a Chinese-style social credit system. Right, he lays his card on the table. But before we go back to that conversation, England's top midwife is urging expectant mums to get the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. This comes as data suggests a rise in COVID-19 hospital admissions among unvaccinated pregnant women in the UK. There's also evidence that the Delta variant, it's known as the Indian variant, poses, a significantly greater risk to pregnant women than previous strains.
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
The study which made these recommendations. Professor Knight, thank you for joining
no evidence to base their choice on. However, we now have information on more than 200,000 women who've had the vaccine in pregnancy, both in the UK and the US, the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine, and we've got no concerns over safety on the basis of a very extensive use in practice.
So, what is your concern if they don't have the vaccine? That obviously that they may get COVID. Could COVID have an impact on the child that the mother's carrying?
That's a really important point. So not only does COVID cause problems for the mum, but also we know that women who are admitted with symptomatic COVID have about a 1 in 5 chance of having a preterm birth, and being born prematurely we know has long-term health implications for children into adulthood. So I think it's really important that women are aware of the significant impacts of COVID in pregnancy.
Vaccines, of course, save lives, and this is another reminder, isn't it, that the COVID jab can keep the mum and the baby healthy.
Exactly. So that's the really good news from this study, because only 2% of women who have been admitted with COVID-19, symptomatic COVID-19 in pregnancy over the last 2 years.
In a quarter of a mile at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
That's really good, real-world evidence of the fact that the vaccine is effective at preventing that infection in that mum and that risk of having a premature baby as a consequence of the COVID infection.
And what about pregnant women being
Exit at junction 6.
with other ailments, Professor? We know that quite often it's unfortunate.
In a quarter of a mile at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tubbs Lane, A355.
I don't have any evidence of substantial numbers of women catching COVID in the hospital. This study that we did were women who came to hospital with symptoms of COVID. So these are women who've caught the COVID outside of hospital, again making the vaccine even more important.
Now, you talked about Pfizer and Moderna. What about the AstraZeneca vaccine? Is that in part of your study too?
So this recommendation in the UK, because that's now the population we've got evidence about, is that pregnant women should be receiving the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. So we don't have any evidence about the AstraZeneca vaccine in our study.
And what is? And are you also suggesting, Professor, how long the gap is between the first and second jab for a pregnant woman, or at what stage of the pregnancy they should have the jab?
So they brought forward the recommended gap now to 8 weeks. So the recommendation in pregnancy is exactly the same as outside of pregnancy.
Exit the roundabout onto Tubbs Lane.
At any stage of pregnancy, I think it's important that women are aware that the complications.
In a quarter of a mile, slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
We see the majority of the women that are admitted to hospital with symptoms of COVID in pregnancy are in the second half of pregnancy. So that's why actually getting your jab earlier, and if you're planning pregnancy, get your jab your first jab before you get pregnant, to ensure that then you're protected as soon as possible.
And just finally, Professor, there'll be some women listening to this who'll think they'll be uneasy. They don't want a needle in them. They're worried there could be side effects, because some people have experienced side effects with vaccinations. What was your clear advice to those women?
Slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
It's very clear that the benefits of vaccination are so great when you look at the risks of COVID infection. If you're at all concerned, have the conversation with your doctor or your midwife. There's some excellent resources on the websites of the Royal College of Midwives and the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. But that one-to-one conversation with your doctor, your midwife, they know you. They can help with any concerns that you've got and help you with the choice of the vaccine.
All right, that's Marion Knight. She's Professor of Maternal and Child Population Health at the University.
Continue for 1.5 miles.
So if you are thinking of starting a family, you heard what the Professor said. If you've not been jabbed, get jabbed and get double jabbed. And if you are pregnant, much very important advice there, telling women you should have the vaccination, the Moderna or the Pfizer jab. Very, very important report that by a study of over 3,000 women, pregnant women. Let's carry on talking about the row over the COVID vaccine passport. So the app has been amended. There's wording now which tells you that you may have to show this to get access to certain types of businesses. It would be potentially football matches. The football season starts very soon, unfortunately. It could be a theatre, a cinema, a nightclub. Do you think that this is, as the Liberal Democrats say, deceitful that the government changed the wording on the app without consulting Parliament to enable vaccine passports to come in via the back door? 0345 6060 973. Alwyn is calling from Leeds. Alwyn, I think you're a new caller.
Yes, hi. I've not spoken before. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. What would you like to say, Alwyn?
Well, I just want to make a very specific, quite narrow point. I've got no real comment to make on deceit or otherwise. But very specifically, I get that people feel proof of vaccination is new and it's something which feels new to people. But there actually are very well established precedents. I'm a doctor in the NHS.
Okay.
And for decades, we've been required to show proof of hepatitis B vaccination as a condition of our employment. If you want to go into countries in the world where yellow fever is endemic, I've gone and done some work in West Africa on occasion, then if you want to go into Ghana or into Benin or into Nigeria, you have to show proof of yellow fever vaccination as a condition of entry. And this has been the case for decades. So it isn't actually new, and there is well-established precedent. I get that it feels new,
yes,
and I get that people are concerned about it, but in practice, it just really is not a problem. So I think, it's a message of reassurance. Get vaccinated if you can.
Yeah, and can I ask you, Alwyn, you work in the NHS. Do you think people who work in the NHS are in public-facing roles? I'm thinking doctors, nurses, radiotherapy therapists. Do you think they should all be required to be double vaccinated?
Well, we all have, so it's in some ways a moot point. I mean, we've been required to be vaccinated, as I say, for hepatitis B and so forth for a very long time. And every year we have to report, not on an individual basis, but on a hospital-wide basis, how many of us have been vaccinated against seasonal influenza, for instance. Our hospitals have to report back to NHS England and have to make efforts to increase uptake rates. So I've got no real comment about whether this should or should not be the case. All I'm saying is it has been the case for many years without problems.
There's a lot of hand-wringing, isn't there, about this?
Well, I get that people are concerned. I get that it feels new. I guess what I'm saying is it isn't really.
No, fascinating. And I have to say, I didn't know, perhaps I should have known, Doctor, I didn't know that as doctors you have to be vaccinated against hepatitis B. And that's been going on for donkey's years.
Well, that group of us who do things like surgery where we pose a danger to the patients. If you get stuck with a needle while your hands are in a body cavity, then the patient could become exposed to your blood rather than the other way around. Or in addition to the other way around. So we've been required to do that for decades.
And can I say just fine, if you don't mind, how is, you don't need to name your hospital, if you're working in a hospital, is your hospital under huge strain because of the rise in COVID cases? And how would that strain have compared to when this wretched thing first started 12, 15 months ago?
I think what I can say is it's not nearly as bad in terms of deaths as the first and indeed the second time around. I think we have the additional problems that we are now trying to deal with the backlog. So even a small increase in admissions causes significant practical problems. As ever, the NHS, in particular my hospital, is working incredibly hard to deal with all that.
Well, and you do us proud, Alwyn, if I can call you Doctor too.
In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Buckingham Avenue.
He's a doctor. Talking, and he said, doctors have to be vaccinated against hepatitis B. That's been the rule for decades. What's the big deal? That's my point. What is the big deal? Why are people wringing their hands in despair because the government's merely added some words to the NHS app saying you may be required to show this?
Take the next left onto Buckingham Avenue, then your destination will be on the left.
What's so conspiratorial about that? Why are the Lib Dems saying it's